Hello and welcome, my name is Mapleus and this is Literally Graphic. And today I am bringing back a book that I thought I had reviewed twice already. It's very strange, very strange. I received this book for Christmas. I read this book, I think at the very beginning of last year. I wrote a review for it. I thought I filmed a review for it, and then I thought I had realized all that, realized I hadn't done a review about it, and I actually did the review of it. And now I was trying to recommend it for May Day, and it doesn't look like I've actually posted a video review of it. So yeah, about time I finally tackled People's History of American Empire. It's a good book. The first thing that I feel obligated to tell everyone is that this is a much easier read than I ever anticipated. A challenging and thought-provoking read certainly, but compared to many other political comics, and not so political comics, I have struggled to slog through. This one was extremely accessible. The panels are even a bit on the too big side, really, but this means the art and text were extremely clear and easy to follow. The text blocks never got too overly long, and the pacing kept things moving at a fairly engaging level. Focusing in on the art first, the choice to intermingle cartoons with historical photographs really grounded the work for me. This is certainly one of the strong points of nonfiction graphic novels and does not work nearly as well in text-focused works. The choice to apply some sort of Photoshop filter to most of these photographs, however, was generally not successful. While it certainly helped the visual flow of some pages, more often than not it made the pages seem rushed and cheap, as if, you were trying to save time by going with photographs or original illustrations. Despite, as I said, the positive ways in which photographs can be used. Digging deeper into the subject matter of the book, I guess I should add the disclaimer that I am, at this point of life, the sort of person who believes the sorts of things that Zinn is dishing out. I'm not particularly emotionally connected to the American exceptionalism sort of narrative that I know is fairly common in the United States. So reading this was definitely preaching to the choir. That said, I do think that this book has a lot of merit, so I will try and explain in as objective a way as possible why I still think that everyone should read this book, or at least try, or at least be challenged to read this book, as I am doing now. First of all, I think that even if you ultimately disagree with this book, it provides a counter-explanation for a history I would say probably all of us already feel like we know. While some may say that Zinn needs more of a balanced perspective, I would argue that not all books need to be all things to all people. Most history classes cover the material from this book from the politically correct perspective, quote unquote. Therefore, rehashing mainstream ideologies would be a complete waste of time in most cases. Life is short. Zinn is very upfront and honest about his agenda and aims to provide the thinking individual with a more balanced perspective of the world overall. Secondly, I would like to reiterate the fact that Zinn is totally upfront with his agenda, and this was a really important discovery when I initially read this book. This is when I first started thinking about how well or how badly people represent their agendas when they set out to write nonfiction books. Every single book you read has an agenda of some kind, even if sometimes the author themselves is not aware of it. Zinn is certainly not sneaking around and pretending to tell you one thing and indoctrinating you with another. In contrast to many more accepted works, being this obvious is a way in which he opens himself to much more criticism. Thirdly, in the face of some of this very criticism, I would like to point out that Zinn does in fact provide us with a fairly lengthy bibliography. Another thing I've definitely come to value more and more as I read more and more nonfiction books after this one. It might have been nice to incorporate it more into the book's narrative, but putting it in the back and sorting it out by chapter is certainly not unusual. Also, most of the agenda put forward by this book is in fact backed up by documented facts. Facts that are certainly not as well publicized as some other facts and half-facts, but almost nothing in this book is pure speculation, contrivance, or unsubstantiated conspiracy theory. Studies, research, and investigations have been done on most of these actions and turned up the narrative that Zinn is presenting to us. That said, I would add the one fact that since writing this review, I have thought a lot more about how biased most facts are, and that it is very hard to get to a completely unbiased fact and interpret it in a completely unbiased way. So even facts can be somewhat dubious at times. Fourth, I once again really appreciate how vulnerable and humble Zinn is throughout, particularly with how much more personal this book is than some of his other history books. Have I read any of his other history books? Perhaps I meant to say other history books. Or perhaps I was just lying to you in this review. I don't know. His giving a speech was a very nice way of framing things, and talking about his own mistakes really humanized him and made him more relatable. I also continue to appreciate people who are confident enough in their own opinions that they don't need to degrade and look down their noses at their critic. Even when it comes to some seriously evil people, the book focuses more on letting people's actions speak for them rather than spending a lot of time tearing people down in a more personal, sneaky, and/or subjective way. And to conclude, I will say again, I think that pretty much everyone should read this. Even if they don't end up agreeing, this book is very thought-provoking and challenging, and no one should hold to beliefs blindly. And to conclude my conclusion to my old review, I would say that, yeah, I definitely think that this was a very, very, very accessible way to get at some more working class history. I have read a couple of other books looking at sort of the white supremacy entrenched in the American history and how to look beyond that and to really develop a much more balanced worldview which appreciates people of all races and all cultures, all religions much more evenly, and not be so obsessed with like the so-called contributions of assumed white individuals. I don't know. It's a lot of like just not knowing things, and which leads to then tacit assumptions that white, Western, Northern, whatever you want to call it, culture has just like given the world civilization. But with that, I will let you all go. My foot is falling asleep, so I will see you next time. Bye! And as always, Literally Graphic is recorded on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation. I live here because of British colonization, Indigenous genocide, and more geographically specific, Treaty 13, also known as the Toronto Purchase, which was finalized in 1805 between representatives of the Crown and certain Mississauga peoples. This treaty was a lie and has since been broken many times over. Saying so reflects only my own small steps towards knowing the truth and does nothing for reconciliation.